What is up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another episode here at O.A.R. Today what I'm thinking about doing, showing you guys how to set up leopard gecko enclosures. We're going to do two different kinds of leopard gecko enclosures. One we're going to do relatively cheap. The other one we're going to do relatively on the more expensive side. Not too expensive, probably, but just what you're most likely going to do if you go into the reptile store and set yourself up. Alright, you ready? Let's get to it. Alright, so here we have a 39-gallon fish tank that was turned into a reptile tank. Now, 39 gallons is a little too much for what I'd use here. In fact, you only want about 20 gallons. But the space down here is about the same as a 20-gallon. That's why I'm going to go ahead and use it. Now, it's already got this layer of reptile carpet here. And since this is going to be our cheap... Now, this is going to be our more expensive one. However, what I will say, though, is that this style enclosure with the top opening is going to be the one you're going to find most likely on Facebook Marketplace or anything like that. With a tank like this, you're probably going to expect to spend around $50. So just keep that in mind. Only because of the fact that I plan to set my reptiles up in the cheaper alternative because I think it looks nicer. So let me go ahead and start setting this guy up to be a little bit more expensive and flamboyant. We'll also add prices for everything as they appear, and we'll compare it at the end. But just for jokes and giggles, we'll pretend this tank right here is the other tank. So really, you're looking at about a $180 to $200 tank, because what you're going to want instead is the front opening 20-gallon. This is what you'll probably find, but you can also find these, and these are also about $150, which still isn't bad, but not cheap. Anyways, let's go ahead and start setting this puppy up, like as if we were going to set our leopard gecko in here. So first things first, what I'm always going to do is I'm going to always add a water dish. I'm going to pick a corner, because I like these little corner ones. They got little steps that my leopard geckos can go up, and this is the kind of dish I see my leopard geckos drinking mostly out of. Alright, so you got your water dish. Now, leopard geckos do not require a lot of humidity, so whatever side their water is on, I tend to make it their cold side because that tends to produce a lot of heat, which will evaporate their water kind of quickly. Now, you're going to want two hides in this enclosure, and really I find two hides to be the best kind. You got this kind. Every gecko I've had has used this hide. It's one of these, I believe they're Zoomid, are they not? They're either Zoomid or Reptoterra, and they're just magnetic dual den hides. And this kind of hide I'd set over in the cool side, just so they can go in and kind of cool off. Or maybe I want a different kind of hide, The other kind of good hide I find is this kind of hide, the low hanging, low opened one. Now this one I can't quite put in that corner, so maybe I'd switch it over and put it on their hot sides. Just this way they have room in there. But this also isn't necessarily a hide I'd put in this enclosure because it just takes up a little too much room. It's a little too clunky. So for the sake of the video, what we're going to do is we're going to take that out and we're going to put one of these in there, just right in that back corner, just for a lot of space. What you don't want to use at all, I do not recommend it, your gecko will never use it, is one of these big old front opening hides. They do not feel secure in there, so they will not use it. So just chuck that. Now, what you're going to want is a secondary hide just to set up the enclosure. Now, for this, I would pretty much recommend something that your gecko can hide behind, but isn't necessarily a hide. Now, your first option is a piece of decor. A piece of fancy decor you like. Something like this T-Rex that I bought And as you can see, it's got this nice little opening in there. It's small enough for leopard geckos to get inside and for them to feel safe. Now for this, I kind of press it up against the corner like that so my gecko can get inside without getting trapped, especially since I'm using reptile carpet and not aspen where they can dig their way out of. The other kind of hide that you'll want, that I like because it sets up a little bit more naturalistic view, not too much so, is a piece of cork bark, like such. You know, it's got that nice little curve in it that they can use as a hide because leopard geckos can flatten out really well. And I'll either set it up in the corner like this so they can hide behind it, or what I'll do is I'll kind of prop it up. You know, prop it up in the corner like this so they can get back there and feel secure and safe. Or maybe you just want to lay it flat where your gecko can go underneath but not really use it as a basking spot or anything like that. That's okay. This will be their basking side anyway, so that it'll absorb nice, decent amount of heat. But like I said, for the sake of the video and trying to save space, we're gonna use that T-Rex decor. Now, Famine, of all my leopard geckos, gets this, and he absolutely loves it. I find him in here every single day. All right, your next piece of enclosure is gonna be your decor. Now for that, what I'm gonna do is I would use it, but I don't have any small enough. A lot of people use these foam backgrounds. I do not like them. I do not recommend them. They're great for snakes, not so great for geckos or any lizard that eats insects. Why? Because crickets will eat their way through it and start breeding in here. And next thing you know, you have a large cricket infestation. So we don't want that, so I'm not going to use that to begin with. Anyways, let's get you guys back. Boom, there we go. Exactly back to where you were. All right, so you got that in there. Next thing you're going to want is some decor, you know? Maybe, you know, you want fake little plant. You know, you're going to set that up nice in the back. Give them a little bit more, give yourself some space so you can see your gecko, but also leave them a little bit of room. Anyways, so the next thing you got is your little piece of driftwood. You know, driftwood is pretty expensive, but I'm going to show you a cheaper alternative to it. All right, this is a pretty decent enclosure setup, you know. You got your water, you got a hide that you can't even see right now, and you got a piece of driftwood for them to bask on. In fact, let me turn this around because like we said before, this is going to be their basking side. So we're probably going to set it up just like that, you know. Enough room for the gecko to still get underneath and climb up if they want. Next, what you're going to want is some sort of thermostat. What I don't recommend is those little strips that read the thermostat. They're hardly ever accurate. Instead, what I tend to use is these. They tend to be a little bit more accurate, and this is reading what the inside of the room is right now anyways. But I love this little thing. Who is this? Zoomed? Yeah, Zoomed. I like these little Zoomed thermostats, you know. They got the little probe so I can set them up wherever I want. If I want one in the hot side, I can. If I want it in the cool side, I can. Because it is a great little probe. And honestly, I use it all the time. Anyways, so that'll be enough of the expensive setup. Alright, so right here we have the other kind of enclosure that is very common to find for a leopard gecko. It is their front facing or front opening 20-gallon enclosure. And this is going to be the one we do as the cheap setup because this is going to be the brumation enclosure for the rest of the year and for the beginning of next year. It'll be a good little start in order for sloth to go ahead and go to sleep for the rest of the year before the breeding season starts. I also prefer the cheaper enclosure setup compared to the more expensive setup because it's a little more natural. Anyways, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add aspen. Aspen is my go-to and preferred bedding for leopard geckos. It's harder for them to swallow than reptile sand, and it's not going to encourage them to swallow it like calcium sand. I also don't like, what is it called? Reptile carpet, because of the fact, well, if you think about it, all your animal's going to do is use the restroom on that, and even if you wash it, are you really going to get all of that out? It's why I don't use reptile carpet, in all honesty. I almost find it completely useless, but some people prefer it because it's easier to clean. Sorta, kinda. Anyways, so now we got enough aspen to cover up the bottom here, with enough for them to bury in if they feel like it. Now the very next thing I'm going to do is build a hide. That's right, build a hide, because of these guys being a rock desert species. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build a nice little rock hide for them to hide in. But you want to be careful with this because you don't want to crack the bottom. It's why I went ahead and added the aspen for a little bit more cushioning. And in my opinion, it's going to look amazing. It's going to have the added benefit of being a heated platform for your gecko or whatever. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to change this up. You won't be able to see them in the hide, and that's okay. What else is the real purpose of a hide? So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate these so they feel just a little bit more secure in there. There we go. You can still kind of see into the rock hide in case they do go in there, and there is plenty of room under there. It's a little shaky, so you might have to fix it, but it also adds a nice little basking platform for your gecko. Now we're going to add a water dish real quick, and I got two options here. We got, I'm not sponsored by them, but an old Gamer Subs lid, anything like this will work, or we got, your pasta sauce lid. This is going to help save you a little bit of money, reduce, reuse, recycle as well. So you can fill these up with water. You'll have to fill them up daily, unlike your other ones, maybe even twice a day. But these way, they also don't take up too much room, and you can set them somewhere like in the back. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add something for them to climb on so that, they're not just on the ground all the time. I like to drape things across their hides, just so their hides feel a little bit more secure and natural, and they can come out and do things on them. So far, I'm liking the way this looks. It's not too cluttered right now, at least from a distance, as we'll pick it up and show. Yeah, it doesn't look too cluttered. There's still plenty of open space for your gecko, but we do have to get one more hide in there. Now, we do have two more hide options for this animal. Now, if you're going to use this for, let's say, a baby leopard gecko, something like this is going to work perfectly. It's nice, dark inside. And yes, this is my old Game Subs dish as well. But they get a nice little hide in there that you can hide behind other objects. And this is just, like I said, to reduce cost. Your other option is, well, I got this from Dollar Tree. So this is going to be the first thing besides the enclosure we actually bought for said enclosure. Now, this is just a Tupperware container that I cut a hole into. I'm going to flip it upside down because this side's darker, so the animal has a nice spot to hide. We're going to put this on the cool side so that they have a hot side and a cool side hide. Now, these hides do take up a little bit of space, I ain't going to lie, but that's okay. They also have great opportunities to climb onto, so it's going to add surface area back into the enclosure. Now, last but not least, what we need to do is we need to add thermometers so we can tell the temperature of the enclosure. Now, the best thing you're going to do is you're going to get something like this. It's going to tell you the ambient temperature inside the enclosure. Or you can get one of these. I don't usually use these. That's a lie. I use them in a lot of my enclosure to get a relative idea of the temperature. These things can be way off. As you can see, this says it's 74 degrees in here. And this says it's closer to 70. It's why I don't use these as much and just use them for a relative idea where I like the accuracy of this a little bit more. But for the sake of the video, we're going to use this, but just know it's probably going to be about 5 degrees off. You're just going to set one on the hot side to get a good idea of the temperature over there and the cool side. Now, leopard geckos do have a wide variety of temperature range, so this will be okay because they can be in the 75s and they can be in the 90s in their basking spot, so it's okay to have that off. It'll give your leopard gecko a chance to acclimate to different temperatures around the enclosure. Now, all of this is going to stay relatively the same no matter what, so we'll just put this we're going to put this for both separate and show you the final cost with these involved too. And finally, we're on to lighting. This is kind of recorded after, that's why this is now in here. That wasn't in here to begin with. But first things first, you're going to want about a 75 to 50 watt basking light or singular light like this. If you have a lot of reptiles in your room, you can easily go with this. This is a 75 watt night light, which I had done. I'm not going to lie. I had it on hand. One of my bulbs exploded, and I quickly replaced it with this. And it was just so close to brumation, I didn't plan on replacing it. I'm not going to lie to you. But really, for night lights, you're going to want a 50 watt one of these. The purple ones. The reason you go purple instead of red is because it was originally believed that red could not be seen by your reptiles. And now that some more further study has, it's proven that red does in fact get picked up by your reptile. And it can mess with their day or night cycle. But we're going to go into a further video on that when we go into the pros and cons of all of the heat sources. But anyways, yeah, you're going to want a 50 watt basking light or a 75 watt normal light like this. And that's if your house stays at about 75 degrees. You can get rid of the night light if you do like I do and keep these guys in a high temperature room where it at least stays 75 degrees almost 24/7, like my reptile room does. These guys do not have light fixtures right now because they're kept in the 70s due to brumation. Anyways, the next thing you're going to want is a dome fixture like this. A dual dome fixture is best. It's a little bit more expensive, but this way everything's just housed together and it's not taking up too much room and it's less things you got to remove from the top of the enclosure. Anyways, that's going to be it for this episode. So peace out. See y'all in the next one. Stay real.